Hello everybody and welcome to another tier list video here on the channel where I, your disheveled goblin in charge, am going to rank nations and groups and stuff. Just, I don't know, taking a bunch of groups, cultures, peoples from fantasy, putting them in a tier list, ranking them out, and I'm excited to do so. But keep in mind,
you can do this too.
just follow the link in the description, make your own, and tweet it at me if you'd like to. Also, this is a subjective list. You're welcome to disagree with me whenever you'd like. And leave any recommendations you have for future tier lists in the comments down there. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and start ranking cultures, countries, things from fantasy stories. Starting with Golds from Red Rising. These people, they sit on the economic top at the beginning of the Red Rising series, no spoilers. They are the leaders of the society and what our protagonist must pretend to be to achieve his goal. They are enhanced, they are super beings, and I'm going to leave them confidently in B tier because they definitely fill a role. Pierce Brown wants them to, and they do it quite well. But in terms of like the grand spectrum of cultures of fantasy, I would not say they're the deepest or the most nuanced, and they're kind of heavy-handed in some of their behaviors. But the characters that do come out of there that you really get to know can really be special. But that's more on a character level than a cultural level. Moving on. We have the White Council from the Dresden Files. Maybe the most incompetent council of wizards ever put to fiction. They are terrible, terrible at their jobs, and they basically do that so that they can be a foil for Dresden. They're not evil, but they are corrupted, they are lazy, and I would say rather stupid at times. Don't get me wrong, love Dresden. I do wish I'd at least put in my honorable mentions for my last top 10 fantasy series video. I took it out for reasons and I second guessed it. I don't know. But anyway, these people are doofuses, and I'm putting them in D because they're dum-dums. Now we have the first nation coming in, Andor from the Wheel of Time. Biggest question right away. Why are you a whale? Why is this almost exactly the outline of a whale? It's a thickum. It's a thickum nation. It's so broad. Why? Anyway, whatever. Moving on. Andor, very nice, well-realized culture. One of the best of the Wheel of Time. Pretty standard, the most standard, I would say, culture within the Wheel of Time in terms of like fantasy cultures that are like the main one, the main protagonist comes up in. So they're not very interesting in that level, but I still think they're a very vivid and vibrant place to live. They are a very vivid, whatever. You know what I mean? The land, the culture. Putting it at A. I'll knock it down to B. No, that's A. I'm being true to me right now. It's A. Andor's nice, because the histories are awesome there, too, and I count history. Mordor. Lot of respect for Mordor. People throw shade on Mordor right and left. You shouldn't. Have you seen how barren it can be? They utilize the land they have extremely well, managed to feed a population. The government's there, and the economic resource management clearly is very next level. And talk about having an aesthetic, they just beautiful. I love Sauron's attention to not only caring for his people, but caring for his look.
You're gonna like the way you look. I guarantee it.
That's commitment. I'm putting this in S tier because history as well is one of the best in fantasy. Now we're just going to go and flip over to an organization. I know we're kind of going all over the place here.
But my life in channel is chaos.
And now we're looking at Ravenclaw. Clearly the best house from Hogwarts. Now, being the best house from Hogwarts, they still just are literally a trope for a type of character. Like, each house is that. And I'm going to say they are C tier, because there's some history there. You get sorted there, you put children, you label the children for life. You're like, you are this, it is your personality. You cannot evolve or change from age 11 to when you graduate, no matter what. You are fitting in with those people, and if you don't, good luck, because you're stuck there, and we're deciding who you're gonna be around and who your rivals. It's weird, it's kind of messed up, I don't like it. And we're actually gonna skip over another one here and just go straight into Gryffindor. Even worse than Ravenclaw, they're the, we're good guys, because we say we're good guys people, and I don't like them. They are obnoxious. Maybe the worst Hogwarts house, bottom of D tier. Slytherin, pretty much the exact opposite of Gryffindor, but not in the way where it's like really good, just serving its foil, and it's not a particularly interesting one. I know there's people who are going to be like, they're not all evil, because, oh. Okay, then why in the last movie did they take literally like the house of Slytherin and just put them in the dungeon? They were like, every one of you, all of you, are going to stereotype together because Harry Potter is very messed up in its social commentary sometimes. And we're going to throw you in the dungeon. That's bad. So they're going bottom of D. Not top of D, bottom of D. Let's just jump ahead. Let's grab the... Oh, wait, did I not put Hufflepuff here? I didn't, because it's not even worth mentioning. Moving on. All right. We have Gondor. Rich, beautiful land. Pivotal to the main Lord of the Rings story. Not quite as aesthetically appealing to me as Mordor. Mordor's just beautiful. But I'm gonna go ahead and say Gondor is a solid A. I'm gonna put it just below Andor in the Wheel of Time. The Aiel, one of my favorite cultures in all of fantasy. Their nations are so neat. I love their breakdown structure and how like you can be in one over here, but on the lower level you're actually in like this group here, and you can go to war with the people that are that, but you know your like brothers are actually, it's great. Wow, so complex, so well realized. The most vivid culture maybe ever in fantasy. And I'm going to put that top of S tier. The Magisterium from His Dark Materials. A pretty heavy-handed representation of some stuff in our world, which drags it down a bit. Granted, that serves the larger purpose for the story, you know? But I can't, like, in comparing it, I'm still like, yeah, it's kind of blunt. And its history is not as well known as many of the other things we see here. I like the personality, but it is a bunch of like Catholic priests running around and being mustache twirly evil at times. So I'm gonna just put it in top of C. Top of C for now. You're fine. Top of C is fine. Ravenclaw, I will move you down out of spite. Okay, that's it. You wouldn't move, now you're further down. Next up, we have the Nilfgaardian Empire from The Witcher. They are a bit vague, I would say. The author has talked about how he doesn't imagine anything when he writes. He just kind of writes. And I think that comes across in the way some of his cultures don't leave as much of an impact. It doesn't feel like he has as vivid an image of these people. They are kind of a force to be reckoned with. They play cool roles in the story and what's going on politically in the books of Witcher, but I'm just not crazy about them. I'll put them just above the Magisterium. Rohan! My horsey boys, my guys who love me some horsies. Just above Gondor, because it is just a little bit better than Gondor. I love Rohan. Fight me. I'd see your Minas Tirith. Oh, it's so shiny, it's so nice, it's so white. Well, they have more horses than you. The Malazan Empire. Oof. You love it, don't you? Hits. It's just epic. It feels weighty. Malazan Empire is so well realized and thought out. It can be tedious to keep up with all the moving parts within it, but and things going against it and just the whole formula around the series. But still, I love me some Malazan Empire, and I'm gonna put it, controversial opinion, just above Mordor. Don't at me, or do, whatever. The Howlers! Woo! That's my attempt at a howl. One of the lead forces against the Golds, fighting for equality and freedom. I think they're absolutely outstanding. One of the best like political movement groups in all of sci-fi, and definitely gonna put them. Okay, Andor won't move, so I think it's telling me something. I think it's telling me I'm overhyping the Howlers, so instead I'm gonna put them just below Gondor, which is like a weird. This tier list doesn't make much sense, but I like it. The First Law, the Circle. It's the kingdom, the world of the First Law. So Joe Abercrombie isn't particularly focused on his world building. He does a lot for atmosphere, he does a lot for his characters living in the world, but in terms of the world building, I just don't see him like absolutely earning his way up to a Gondor level. I don't think most people are going to argue with me on that. But I'd say in terms of the aesthetic, it definitely earns a spot at least next to the Golds. In fact, I would say just above the Golds from Red Rising. Golds, okay, you have to, just like Golds, to not take a step down. The Underdark, which is more like a region that the Dark Elf city-states populate from Forgotten Realms. But I wanted to bring it in here because I've talked about aesthetic a good amount. It continues to fall into an aesthetic that I like. And this aesthetic is that of some sad boys, some mean boys, some evil boys. And I really enjoy the Underdark. It's one of my favorite well-realized like places within Forgotten Realms. And if you read Trist's story, you're gonna get to know it. So I'm gonna put it actually top of B. It pushes out the entirety of the First Law world. And now we're moving on to just a race of people. Again, this tier list doesn't make much sense. Fight me about it. I guess this is kind of similar to the Aiel, whatever. The Tissendi from Malazan. Book of the Fallen. The Tisandi are, well, they have Animander Rake. That's all I need to say. They're borderline top of A. I'll put them just below Andor. No, okay, I'm not going to put them above Gondor and Rohan. But yeah. Next up, we have the Chromaria from Lightbringer. One of the few instances where we have like a ruling force, and the story is like this ruling force trying to control people already under their control. They're like starting to rebel, but instead of being on the side of the rebellion, twist, we're actually on the side of like the people trying to control, which isn't always like, that's not typical for fantasy. Usually it's like the underdog's the person you're on, like your side, but not here. But the Chromaria I like. It's actually one of my favorite elements to Lightbringer. I'm gonna put this just atop above the Howlers, not to diminish the Howlers at all. They're cool, but I just think the depth and the political nuance of the Chromaria, worth it. Aes Sedai! I know the first question you're asking, Wheel of Time fans. Why am I doing each Harry Potter house, except for Hufflepuff, because they're trash, but I'm not doing each Aja. Because there's a lot of Ajas, and I didn't want to fill this up entirely with all the different Ajas. But I'm going to go ahead and say the Aes Sedai are probably the best, like, you know, magical order in fantasy in terms of, like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I didn't think this through. But I'm going to go ahead and put them just above Mordor. This is my ranking for various orders, nations, groups. That's the correct. This is the groups in fantasy tier list. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and how would you rank it? It's going to be a weird one, because this is an odd collection. I'm having fun today. Anyway, guys, like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And did you catch the special thing in the background? Have a good one, y'all. Peace. And of course, I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier Patreon, Ryan.